for leadership to look at online for existing offenders, and more importantly, like where they're living at, location, the circumference of where they're at, to make sure that we're all in a safe zone.
Right now, we are just using the basic global positioning system, the GPS, where we're trying to pinpoint a lot of this, a lot of the residences. Now, to be put onto the site, it's a challenge for our for our officers to do so, because we're off a little bit, but we generally try to get that centralized. And if you see a Google map pinpoint, that's literally how it looks. But what we're trying to work on is getting information as to do a better site view, as far as getting the satellite, more like a terrain view of where the individual lives. So it's been a challenge. If you see on the PowerPoint, you'll see TSOR. The TSOR, the territorial TSOR, the website that we have, we do have a lot of support and guidance from the individuals there, and it's a tribe and territory website that we have. So they've tried to work with a lot of things, so you'll see a little bit of changes in there. What we've generally changed in there, and there was a question to me the last time as to how many of these offenders are at certain chapters. So we've now put that tab in there, so you'll see some of the offenders in certain chapters. And a lot of times, because there's so many files, there's so many offenders for our 5 officers, they have to go in and update a lot of this stuff manually. So this is going to take time. But that's one of the things that we're looking at, is the mapping system. And it would give you a general idea if it's a terrain view rather than just a pinpoint of the location.
Okay, thank you. Committee members, are there any other questions?
I do Delegate Crotty, Delegate Brown?
Yes, Delegate Brown, please ask your question. Thank you.
Yes. Yeah, thank you, Lieutenant Williams, for your very important, enlightening presentation here. I just heard you say that with Delegate Crotty's questions that some of the schools, I'm sorry, let me turn this other meeting down. A lot of initiatives going on the Navajo Nation with our chapters also, so we're multitasking. But what I heard was some of the schools are not aware of this sex offender registration and the Notification Act. So I don't know if it's a directive that this sexual assault prevention subcommittee needs to make to your office to present to DOTI or to Navajo Nation Education or the school board, so that they are also the legislative body over schools, so they can get this education. I know that school board previously, they have to have, I believe, 40 hours a year of education. And of course, this would be the highest priority on behalf of not just this committee, but for the 24th Navajo Nation Council. Madam Chair, we can make directives through a sexual assault prevention subcommittee, right?
Yes, Vice Chair, we could make directives and follow up on that request.
Yes, I would like to make that directive, just to make sure that the schools are getting this very important education to protect all our children. And I believe that for the sex offenders, I know that with the MMIW, human trafficking, etc., there are still victims out there that are adults also, and not just females, but boys and men also. So if we can just make this education available to the schools, I know that when I made the presentations on human trafficking to the school board, some of the school boards, they were not aware. They always told me, oh, that does not exist in our community. We're not by Mexico. We are not way over there. But little do they know, once we provide this information and to provide them the support. And I believe, and I know this is why Sexual Assault Prevention Subcommittee is created also to help our people. So I would like to make that directive. Basically would be just to take the education to the Navajo Nation School Board. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Ms. Spencer, for directives at the subcommittee, do we need a motion, a vote, or could we just recognize that directive and working together we can send out that memo?
Hi, Madam Chair. Yes, the director with the motion, and then work out with the memo would be good. Thank you.
Okay, Chades, I know there's a lot of things going on, but if we could go, committee members, are there any other questions for Lieutenant? We'll make the motion for the directive after our questions in case there's additional language that needs to be added to the directive. Thank you. Not hearing any other questions, what I did want to ask, part of the notification process is for employment. Lieutenant, can you share with us how the office notifies the employer, or what are those parameters, and what's the capacity of the program at this time to make those notifications to the employer? Thank you. Hi, Lieutenant, are you still there with us? Are you still there with us? Are you still there with us? I think for this line, it's been interesting to work with, but it is ** if you're on mute. We are trying to provide this presentation online, and it looks like we're having some difficulties, some challenges, so we might change to a different format for our next meeting. So I apologize, committee members and those on the line with us. Lieutenant, are you still there?
Yes, I am here. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Hello? Okay. Yes. Okay, with the recent operation that we had, we did see that this is something that we're going to have to revisit as far as going out to make the visitations. Upon one of these contacts that we had, the relative did provide us some information with the employer. So at this point, we're updating the offender right now, and we did talk about moving forward with getting a format completed, so that way the documentation would be given to the offenders, and they would then present it to the employer. And if the employer does have information, then they would be able to contact us. The other ways that have been a tool for the employment and also with the Division of Social Services has been the Tribal Access Program. This is a system that an individual can be fingerprinted for background purposes for employment. There should be a confirmed hit if the individual is a registered sex offender. So this program is available it's here on the Navajo Nation, and we have one that's located at Crown Point Police Department, the other that's located in Kianta, and the other one that's located in Chinle. And I know the Division of Public the Division of Social Services does have a system in their administration there. So that's the other tool that the employers do use to get that confirmation. The other thing now for the Smart Office, they've introduced a new system that's being used. It's a justice web-based and database that we can use. We enter the information of the offenders, and that's one other way of the information being as a confirmation hit. So a lot of this stuff, I think, is going to have to be, we can do a demonstration to the council if they would like to see this process. But it is a part of the PowerPoint. We do have this information. So a lot of this, like I said, it starts with the SORNA register. They have to enter in all these different databases to ensure that we are making the effort of getting the information out there. So it is imperative for us to get that information in there so that way they can have that confirmation hit if they were to be employed. But we are looking at doing that documentation so that the offenders do show their employers that they are registered.
Thank you. I do have a question regarding the victims and the survivors. Are they throughout this process? Are they notified and kept up to date? When we review our data on sexual assault survivors, our children or our adults, the perpetrator, the person is usually someone who they know and someone who lives in their home or nearby their home. What can you give us guidance in terms of how victims and survivors are taken into account when the offender then is back on Navajo Nation? Thank you.
From my understanding, we don't make that contact, but that's probably one of our areas of improvement, and we're open to any suggestions or recommendations.
Yes, Lieutenant. So let's we could schedule a follow-up call, committee members, and see how we can support the office to expand some of their services, and looking at how we can integrate and providing victims with either notifications. I think some of the challenges we saw with COVID was when some of our prisoners were released early, and it wasn't clear at that time. So I'd like to have a follow-up call too on the impact of COVID. Thank you very much, Lieutenant, for your presentation. Are there any other questions from the committee?
Delegate Crotty, this is Delegate Brown.
Yes, Vice Chair Brown.
Really quickly, Lieutenant Williams, thank you again. One quick question. I know that, again, in our position in leadership, we always hear our people making recommendations with, it seems like the base of all these problems seems to stem from not just alcohol, but other substances like meth and other drugs. And, this creates a lot of problems for our people whose houses are broken into, theft, burglary, ultimately assault, rape, molestation, murder, etc. With some of these individuals that we know of, and I don't know if there's a such thing as people being rehabilitated fully from these sexual assaults, heinous crimes, and it seems like there is a pattern with some of these individuals who commit these heinous crimes. They are repeat offenders. So I always hear the revolving door being talked about by law enforcement, by detention officers. So with that, what are your thoughts about if Navajo Nation, we are talking about in Title 17 to strengthen our law and ultimately banishing our own people? And even in my community, Danahoto, they passed a resolution against bootlegging and also They are trying so many different ways. They even thought of buying drones to kind of look over people I think everyone knows who the bootleggers are, and it creates trash. It creates so much imbalance in our communities. So our chapters are trying to think creatively, but ultimately there are laws in place protecting the perpetrators, it seems like, as well. So banishing, and then our chapters also have recommended to take home site leases away. But my question is focus on banishing these individuals. What are your thoughts on it? Thank you. Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yes, thank you, Vice Chair, for that question. Committee members, are there any other questions? Okay, Lieutenant, if you could help provide some guidance, thank you.
Madam Chair, this is Donovan. I believe the lieutenant's phone call has dropped.
Okay, thank you, Shiaj. We'll wait a few minutes for her to come back on. I know that the system is giving us some challenges today. For those who are on the call, we did send out an email with a copy of the presentation. It is a large file, and we also sent out a few more supporting documents. For the community members online, thank you for joining us. We'll send out a link so that you can have access to the report, and just let me know, Donovan, Shania, if Lieutenant is able to join us and to get the questions answered from Vice Chair Brown.
Actually, Chair, we can move forward. I can reach out to them, and then when she returns back to our committee, we can follow up at that time as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Vice Chair. We could schedule a leadership call with the SORNA office so that we can follow up on the directive and any other questions. I think because my last request was going to be training to chapter officials and elected leadership, they did want to learn more about this program because Chairman Nez at one time asked, do chapter employees get background checked or PEP workers? And so we do have a recent incident where there was an individual who was working at the chapter, and the community was concerned in terms of just the background and individuals not being aware. So we'll follow up with that. What I could do is if we could, Vice Chair, if you could make your motion for your directive, and we can move forward with that vote and move forward with the vote for this report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chair. I'd like to make a motion for the Navajo Nation SORNA, Navajo Nation Police Department, to provide education to the school boards on the Navajo Nation. I know that there are plenty out there, but basically it would be to contact Dodie and to disseminate the information. I know that I think they do have regional WebEx meetings. I think that would be the best place to do that. Thank you.
Okay, motion by Vice Chair Brown. Do I have a second?
I'll second. Delegate Stewart.
Thank you, Delegate Stewart. So Delegate Stewart second. Any questions from the committee? Not hearing none. Shadeja, if you could help us with the vote, thank you.
Okay, Honorable Nathaniel Brown,
I vote green.
Honorable Brown votes green. Honorable Vince James,
Delegate James votes green.
Honorable James votes green. Honorable Wilson C. Stewart Jr.,
Green.
Honorable Stewart votes green. Honorable Eugene So,
Green.
Honorable So votes green. Honorable Paul Begay. Honorable Paul Begay. Madam Chair, you have 4 in favor, 0 opposed, 2 not voting, which is including the chair not voting and Honorable Paul Begay not voting.
Yeah, thank you, Shadeja. I want to thank our providers who are on the line who are also texting questions. Thank you, and we'll continue to try to improve this platform. So committee members, if there's no other questions, we'll move to accepting the report. Ms. Spencer, did we have a motion on this report in a second?
Yes, we did.
Okay, thank you. I'll call for the vote. Shadeja, can you help us with the vote on accepting the report? Thank you.
Okay, Honorable Nathaniel Brown.
I vote green.
Honorable Brown votes green. Honorable Vince James.
Delegate James votes green.
Honorable James votes green. Honorable Wilson C. Stewart Jr.
Green.
Honorable Stewart votes green. Honorable Eugene So.
Green.
Honorable So votes green. Honorable Paul Begay. Honorable Paul Begay. Madam Chair, you have 4 in favor, 0 opposed, 2 not voting, which is including the chair not voting and Honorable Paul Begay not voting.
Thank you. I appreciate that. We'll move on to report number 2 with the Department of Social Services Family Harmony Program. Ms. Yazi, are you on the line?
Yes, Madam Chair, I am on the line.
Thank you, Ms. Yazi. You and your program have 20 minutes to present to the committee. Thank you.
Thank you for this opportunity. Madam Chair, delegates, people on the call, thank you for this opportunity. My name is Regina Yazi. I am the department manager for Department of Family Service, which is one of the programs under the overall Division of Social Services. So we were presented with a couple of questions, and we submitted our, it wasn't me, but our legislative analyst submitted our written report this morning, and I will just go over that briefly. The question that was presented to us regarding the funding, any challenges and recommendations as it relates to our domestic violence funding. We do receive we receive 4 domestic violence type funding. One is the Administration for Children and Families Family Violence Prevention and Services Act grant, which is primarily used as for 70%, which is used for direct services, which funds 7 domestic violence contracts, which are subcontracts that we do. We also have we also spend 30% of the funds related to paying for salary of employees that are under this grant. Overall, the FIPSA, which is called FIPSA, Family Violence Prevention and Services Act grant, we have 1.9 million that we had received for 2020 and 2021 funding cycle. In that, I had also included the breakout of the amount that was given to the allocated for the 7 subcontracts that we have, which is a multi-year subcontract that we have with the 7 domestic violence shelters. Next, we also received the Utah State of Utah Victims of Crime Act grant, which is in the amount of $155,000. And that is also for 2021, which is specifically for the operation of the Gentle Iron Hawk Shelter in Blanding, Utah. We next have the 638 BIA Domestic Violence Initiative, which is in the amount of $145,000, which is primarily funding which supports the operation of vehicle usage and also salary of some staff that are under that grant. The fourth grant is also 638, which is called Tawahi Funds, in the amount of $429,000 for FY 2021. However, the department has just barely received from the funding source BIA $124,000 so far. And this is primarily to pay for the salaries of our victim witness advocates as well. Some challenges that we have come across in working on these subcontracts and internally are basically that when we, on a yearly basis, we have to connect with our subcontractors on having them renew their scope of work, renew their budgets, and also renew their insurance documents before they can be, before their subcontracts can be fully approved by Navajo Nation. So with that, one of the things we've come across this past year is some of the subcontractors have not been timely in submitting their documentation, thereby delaying the process in terms of an overall approval for their subcontract. So the recommendation there is basically that contractors need to submit documents timely, and also because we have to go through the 164 process. The other item that's a challenge, that has been a challenge for us, is the Office of the Controller has only one employee designated to handle contracts, which has caused a backlog of documents that need to be reviewed and processed by the office. So when there's a backlog, when there are delays in terms of reviews and approval, it really has impacted how soon and how quickly these subcontractors can be paid out in terms of their reimbursement on their invoices on a monthly basis. So our recommendation there is for the Office of Controller to hire additional employees to process contracts timely. The second question was basically asking about given that April, the month of April, is the Sexual Assault Awareness month, and what type of activities are being planned. We have at least one field office that has reported that they are working on a sexual assault awareness campaign locally within their community, such as distributing flyers and coordinating with local resources to provide public education and awareness. That is my update report, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Yazzie. Were you, in terms of the sexual assault awareness activities, can you give us a breakdown? So the Navajo Nation is broad. Could you let us know, like what your Tuba City office is planning to do, your Crown Point, or your, like for example, your Shiprock office? Thank you.
Well, at this time, Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee, as I stated, there's just the one field office, which is Crown Point, that have reported that they are planning the local awareness campaign. The other field offices have not responded to me. I did ask, so I don't have any specifics on the other field offices, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Yazi. So I appreciate your report. Committee members, this is the report from Social Services. May I receive a motion?
This is Delegate Brown. I'll motion.
Thank you, Vice Chair Brown. Motions, a second.
Eugene So.
Eugene So, second. Moving on, are there any questions from the committee for Ms. Yazi? Ms. Yazi, we're going to have a follow-up conversation next week regarding victim services on Navajo Nation. I'm going to be sponsoring a resolution that will give Navajo Utah Health Services to be appointed to administer the Office of Victims of Crime Tribal Set-Aside. So we submitted our documents, and I want to see who we can invite from social services to continue to have that conversation, to start planning out on Navajo Nation. We have the ability, and that'll be later on in this agenda, for some strategic planning. Who in your office can be our point of contact so that we can continue to update social services?
Madam Chair, that is myself.
Okay. I will send you an email with that information, Ms. Yazi. And I do want to, in our conversations, if we could set up a call, the Office of Victims of Crime did provide an allocation of funds to capacity builders they're based out of Farmington. We followed up and had a conversation regarding that funding, and that is to help train advocates. And but it looks like there needs to be additional calls for some coordination with the Navajo Nation, and how. So, would you also be the person, the point of contact, to have that conversation about the advocate training?
Madam Chair, members of the committee, I did reach out to the Coconino County Sexual Assault Office. They had provided 2 online trainings so far to our advocates and supervisors. That was during that was just this month, in the month of March.
Awesome.
We are planning other follow-up trainings with the office as well in the coming month or so.
Okay. Right. So we could just, in our follow-up call, Ms. Yazi, I'll just and thank you for that. I'm glad that there's coordination with the training and the supervisor. The other item would be New Mexico Senator Pinto passed the state memorial, and that was a request to have a community assessment on the domestic violence needs of Navajo Nation. Because that's from New Mexico, that limits our approach. And so we are looking at how to develop a community assessment for Navajo Nation. So if we could have a follow-up call, Ms. Yazi, with you and your team on how we could start planning out what a community assessment would look like if there was one in the past, and then how our biggest thing is making sure we have this resource network identified, so that all of those individuals can be at the table, and we could continue to advocate for not only prevention, but when a crime or an incident occurs, there's wraparound service. So I will continue to invite you to those calls, and thank you for your participation.
Thank you. Yes.
Okay. Committee members, are there any other questions for Ms. Yazi?
Chair, Madam Chair, Eugene here.
Oh, Delegate So, please ask your question.
I'm not really request to, but I have a question that's been lingering on me, and people are kind of asking me about there are, I guess, happenings out there with this today's technology regarding to any kind of maybe verbal or I don't know what you call text, email, or Facebook kind of assault, sexual assault. Is there a cyber team or someone that takes care of these sexual that's not a sexual crime? That's my question. I don't know which one of we can answer, but Claudia, thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. So, Ms. Yazzie, do you know if your advocates addressed either cyberbullying or revenge porn?
Delegate Crotty, Honorable Crotty, and members, no, I'm not aware of any that is specifically being addressed in that fashion, no.
Thank you, Ms. Yazzie. Delegate, so we can assist in coordinating a meeting with Navajo Nation Police Department. There is Navajo Nation laws regarding cyberbullying, and there is a Navajo Nation law regarding revenge porn. That is when an individual posts without the consent explicit or sexual natured photos or videos of an individual, so we can get you more information, and maybe that could be something as a report for our next agenda item, so that there's a little bit more community education on what does that mean. Delegate So?
You are saying, regards to that issue, that's what's really going on out there now. And it's not only pictures, it's just by verbal. I mean, just by words, this and that's going on. And it's kind of chain link sometimes. Facebook will put on something, everybody pitch in and put in their 2 cents. What are you on out there? So it needs to be stopped, or should we just let it go on? I don't know, but it don't look right to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate So, and we could follow up with cyberbullying and make sure that if that information needs to be updated too. So thank you for the question. Committee members, are there any other questions for the Department of Social Services?
Delegate Crotty, this is Delegate Brown. Hello?
I apologize. My call dropped, so I had to call back in. I did hear you, Delegate Brown. Please ask your question.
Okay. I got muted earlier, I think. But anyways, a question. When we do a follow-up with you, Ms. Yazzie, thank you for your report and all your work. Can you have your staff, I know previously we were working with the staff of the Navajo Nation Social Services before. We collaborated with numerous organizations like the Casey Family Foundation, the Casey Foundation, as well as CU Boulder, Navajo Nation Police, CI, and we were collecting data. And I am really interested in the human trafficking cases on the Navajo Nation. I do report also back to the Arizona Human Trafficking Council, and we want to continue to work and how to strengthen not just the policies, but also the services available. I have not heard any other cases, and you, in your specific position, you are in that capacity to have the data there, and also how our kids are taken care of. I know that the system is not perfect, and how do we work together to ensure that our Navajo children and young folks are that we are helping them. I know that in this pandemic, crime rates, when the reports that we got when I listen to Law and Order Committee and through Navigated and Council, the numbers have increased as far as domestic violence. We also see it in our communities with the rise in alcohol and substance abuse, bootlegging, illegal drug trafficking that's going on, and of course, once you have those ingredients mixed together, and then people with unemployment, no source of revenue coming in, and then that's when human trafficking starts to happen. So it's really the way it was described to me with some of the education that we've been receiving. It's almost like when people are molested, but whenever you add money and goods and other services, like if someone wants to sell their children for alcohol or drugs, then that's when it becomes a human trafficking case. And really, another thing, the second part to this is I would like to also provide what I know to provide you and your staff additional information on human trafficking, and to get you up to speed, so I can go ahead and do that as soon as you can provide me some time, maybe 4 hours. I can bring my team from the Arizona Human Trafficking Council with me. This is so important, and your position is key. What you direct and what you tell your social workers, the education that you provide them is really important. So I want to know also, when was the last time your staff received a human trafficking education? If not, I am more than willing to set a time to provide that education with my team as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Brown. Are there any other questions from the committee? What I would like to ask, and thank you for the public for reaching out to the committee, is Ms. Yazzie, can you give us any data or information if the advocates or the program provides support to our veterans or those who are survivors of military sexual assault? Thank you.
Honorable Brody and members of the committee, I don't have that data at this time specifically related to veterans and sexual assault survivors, victims. I don't have that. And just to also add, our services are for anybody that calls to our office for an intake that needs services related to domestic violence, a shelter of safe care of some type. They're available to anybody. So with that said, Delegate Crotty, that's my response. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Yazzie. If we could have a follow-up conversation on how to maybe bring awareness in working with Navajo Nation Veterans Administration. We are working with veterans who want to provide additional resources here. Do you have any answers for Vice Chair Brown's suggestions? Thank you. And questions?
Thank you, Vice Chair Brown, for your suggestions. We are working with the trainer out of Coconino County regarding the topic of several different topics, rather, and I will address the topic of human trafficking with the trainer. I have been informed when I came on board with this program, our victim witness advocates and our supervisors have been trained, have received training on human trafficking at one time or another. I don't know when that was, whether it was within the past couple of years. I didn't get specifics, but I was informed that staff have received some type of training, either had gone specifically to a training or had been at a conference or workshop. But I know that the Coconino County office that I'm working with can offer the human trafficking training as well. I can, when we do our follow-up phone call, Delegate Karate, we can address that further at that time as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Yazzie. Committee members, are there any other questions?
Yes, Honorable Delegate Crotty.
Yes, who may is speaking?
This is Gloria from Capacity Builders.
Yes, thank you, Gloria. If you could, we're in a formal meeting, so the questions that need to be asked come from the committee members. Let me just pause and see if there's any questions from the committee members. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Sure.
Sorry.
No problem. It's because we're in a formal setting, and that's why we'll schedule a leadership meeting. And in the leadership meeting, that allows more of an informal conversation and dialogue. But just going back to the committee, are there any other questions, committee members? Okay, not hearing any. What we can do, Sumayaja Gloria, is when we schedule this call, we'll invite you. It looks like on my calendar, I'm trying to schedule a call for Tuesday at from 8 to 10. And from that time, we're going to start scheduling additional meetings so that we can support and strengthen victim survivor services here on Navajo Nation. Thank you.
Question, Delegate James.
Delegate James, please ask your question.
Yeah, thank you for the information. I'd like to know if you've been working with any of the organizations that are providing food donation items, PPE gears, that's not within the Navajo Nation organizations that start up. And if you're asking them or if you're working with them to keep a lot of the individuals that have background issues regarding sexual assault or down that line, because I've heard a couple response from individuals that, you know, this person was a child molester, here's the background check, or did some sexual, and they're leading the organization, they're leading the crew, they're the team crew leader of a certain organizations that are happening at the chapter and so forth down that line. So I wanted to know if you guys were doing anything with those organizations or if you're contacting them to ask them of those information. I believe these organizations don't require a background check on these individuals, and maybe that needs to happen for some of these organizations. That way they're not providing any PPE gears or any of those sort of donated items, because it's a very, very sensitive topic. But I mean, I think it should be a benefit on your behalf to ask those questions to these organizations that are helping our Navajo people. I would think that individuals would be respectful and truthful to provide that information to the organization that they're working under, to say, and to bring up their background issues. But if not, then we're in some sort of little issues regarding these individuals getting in contact with these either minors or adults or some sort of whatever way their background check is based up of. So, Ideya, Akwagi, Bahna Adishkidole. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate James. Committee members, are there any other questions? So if Ms. Yazzie, if you could answer the questions, thank you very much.
Delegate Crotty and members of the committee, thank you for the question, Delegate James. The one office, which is the World Kitchen Center, the organization that assisted with food donation last year when they came on to Navajo, that's the organization that comes to my mind in terms of they were on Navajo for several months and providing food donations, distributing them throughout Navajo Nation. We did partake in getting some of the food boxes for our clients and community members out there. However, it was our staff that picked up the food boxes and distribute those food boxes ourselves. But in terms of employees of the organization, that is something I believe some type of background check can be initiated and mandated by the Navajo Nation of organizations coming onto Navajo. If they're planning to be on Navajo, those types of background checks should be done through and presented to perhaps the president's office or whoever is initiating a coordinated effort with that organization. Us, Department of Family Service, Division of Social Service, we've not specifically reached out directly to an organization and brought them onto Navajo. It's only after when the organization is already operating on Navajo and someone has already reached out to the organization from some other office, whether that be the president's office or whether that be Department of Health. I'm not quite certain, but those are just some examples. That's when we're informed. Oh, by the way, here's just some information. This organization is donating these types of items. Therefore, please go here, pick up the items, and distribute them to your clients. That's usually how these types of, whether it be PPEs or bottled water or food or even baby items, perhaps we've had those types of donations. We've gone out and picked them up ourselves and gave them to our clients. That's how Department of Family Services field offices have coordinated these types of efforts. Madam Chair.
Oh, yeah, thank you, Ms. Yazzie. Committee members, are there any additional questions? Not hearing any. Thank you, Ms. Yazzie, for your report. For our next meeting, if we could get an update on the data, it looks like it may have been in either August or September, you provided a breakdown of the advocates, the work that they're doing in the field. If we could prepare a report for next month on the updated data, that helps us as we understand in looking at Navajo Nation, their data from the police department or criminal investigators, and working with our office of the prosecutor, what we want is to develop a system that's accountable. And so if an individual is filling out a police report, we're developing a system on how to track that. And so your data is very important to that success. So thank you very much. If there's no other questions, we'll have our follow-up meeting on hopefully Tuesday morning. And committee members, then we could call for the vote if there's no other questions. Shadeja, Sherelle, if you could assist, thank you. Oh, I'm sorry, Shadeja, scratch that. I have one more question for Ms. Yazzie. I was on the call with the Utah Navajo Commission chaired by Delegate Brown. Thank you for your report on the shelter. Could you just clarify, is Navajo Nation Social Services moving forward with opening the shelter, or is there discussion and opportunity to bring in another operator to assist the nation? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, we are at this time, we are moving forward in doing the operations. However, we did have a conversation with an outside organization as a possibility, but at this moment in time, a formal decision has not been made. But the Department of Family Service is moving forward with the opening the operations of the Gentle Iron Hawk Shelter. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Yazzie, for that update. So the proposed opening month is what month?
July 1st.
Oh, thank you, July 1st. Okay, I appreciate that. Committee members, I apologize. Are there any additional questions? Hearing none, Shadeja, if you could help us with the vote, thank you. Okay, Honorable Nathaniel Brown.
I vote green. Thank you.
Honorable Brown votes green. Honorable Vince James.
Delegate votes green.
Honorable James votes green. Honorable Wilson C. Stewart Jr.
Green.
Honorable Stewart votes green. Honorable Eugene So.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Honorable So votes green. Honorable Paul Begay.
Green.
Honorable Begay votes green. Madam Chair, you have 5 in favor, 0 opposed, 1 not voting, which is the chair not voting.
Thank you, committee members. This second, or we'll move on to the third report, legislation 0024-21. I wanted to, and I apologize. I know Donovan, Shania, you're on the line, but I just needed to know if you could, or if you have any information on this legislation, in particular, the priorities for sexual assault, domestic violence, and missing and murdered dinner relatives. Would you be able to provide that guidance? If not, tonight I could provide it.
Go right ahead, Delegate Crotty. I'll follow your lead.
Okay, thank you. So with that, I would need Vice Chair Brown. Would you be able to facilitate this conversation as pro tem?
Yes, I can. Chairwoman Crotty.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I'm going to time myself pro tem to make sure that we stay in the time. I'll begin the report. Committee members, we have legislation 0024-21. It's the Navajo Nation adopting federal legislative priorities. I just wanted to give the committee a chance to hone in on some of the language that is added that this committee reviews. This document is pretty large, so I was unable to send it via email. But what looks like there's an additional comments from the community regarding the establishment of additional victim services and and the prosecution of sexual assault, violent offenders, federal prosecution. And so I just wanted to have a conversation with the committee if we wanted to add that language, or we could write a letter to the Office of the Speaker to support the adding in of that language. I would just need some direction from the committee on how we want to move forward. So, sorry.
Okay, thank you. Madam Chair Prati, thank you for your report. So we are on legislation 0024-21 and committee members of Sexual Assault Prevention Subcommittee. There was a question posed to us from Delegate Crotty, maybe some direction on this legislation on the federal priorities on sexual assault, domestic violence, and missing and murdered in their relatives, prevention and victim services. Committee members, any thoughts or directions, if you could weigh in. Thank you.
Madam Chair, I don't have that on my phone.
Okay, Shiaz, it ended up being a large file. It's 0024-21. Let me see if that was when that was submitted to delegates.
So is it the Exhibit A that you're talking about?
Actually, Pro Tem, I was excused yesterday from Nabakiatian, and so it looks like there was a lot of late discussions regarding this. Ms. Spencer, can you let me know, was there already action taken on 0024-21?
Madam Chair and members of the subcommittee, yesterday I was on call in the morning, but I wasn't there on call for the afternoon, so I'm not certain as to what happened. Sorry. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Spencer. Maybe Donovan, Pro Tem, can just help us get a quick update if there was a final action on 0024. If so, then we can work on our subcommittee's request for federal priorities. We would have additional documents considering the intersections with education, social services, public safety, judicial, and mental health. Thank you, Pro Tem.
Okay, thank you. I just got back on really quick also. I got kicked off. Okay, I believe the question was posed to Speaker's Office staff Donovan. Here, any response or update from legislation 0024-21?
Thank you, Vice Chair. Madam Chair, what I'm looking at right now is on DIB. I know it was discussed last night at Navigated meeting, and I believe it was passed. So right now, that is the update. We are waiting for final steps in the progress. So let me see. I can continue finding more information. Give me a couple of minutes, but that's what I have right now.
Okay, thank you, Donovan. Also, committee members, Madam Chair, there was an amendment to 0024-21 by Delegate Daniel. So, and that was Donovan, if you can look into that also on these possible amendment was number 11, eliminate the 3 MPL chapters and modify to include all MPL chapters. Number 15, include FirstNet per. Okay. And then there's number 16, Veterans Direct Services. So that's some of the, if we can get an update on that as well.
Stefan Osh, acting co-chair.
Go ahead, Delegate Stewart.
Oh, that is my issue. This legislation, again, from what I recall, again, Mark Freeland tabled it to April 8th for a special session regarding what we're asking to put in new amendments. We're supposed to get with our committees, subcommittees, and review it and put in our amendments, get our amendments ready for April 8th to be presented to, at that time, a Benyajan. So that was what I recall on this legislation, if that wasn't already said. I was out of the room for a little bit.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Delegate Stewart, for your update. We appreciate that. So it looks like committee members, this legislation was table 0024-21, and that's where I guess we are going to be working on this, adding our priorities from this committee, the Sexual Assault Prevention Subcommittee, Shananta Akoho Eladi Dekhet Aban Sabke. And Delegate Crotty, do you have additional language that you would like to, that you had in mind at this time?
Thank you, Pro Tem. At this time, we do have the document that was attached for our missing and murdered Diné relatives. I'm going to send that back out to the committee, and we could make those amendments at our standing committees. And the other area, Chair, would be in response, we do have assistance or to increase advocacy for crime victim support that was received on the public comments. So you could see it on the public comments. Maybe what I could do, working with our staff, is synthesize that for the committee and then have that ready for the discussion on April 8th.
Okay, so in this, in our committee meeting right now, do we need to motion to add that, or do we add those that language at the regular committee or the other committees, Chair?
Thank you, Pro Tem. So I think at this time was just for a discussion to help give me some guidance on what to get ready. And so I'm glad Delegate Freeland asked to table, but I just need to know at this point if there's any additional items. I can use our SAP logic model, and so I'll send that out to the committee, and that will give us guidance on the recommendations and the priorities. And that was presented at our last meeting, Pro Tem.
Okay, one other thing, committee members and Chair, I understand that Jalissa is also on the line with us right now. So if Jalissa, if you could give the committee an update on this legislation 0024-21 from yesterday's Nabakia meeting. Jalissa, if you can give us an update, please.
Good morning, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Good morning, subcommittee members. Legislation 0024-21 was tabled last night. It was tabled by Mark Freeland, second by Otto. There was one amendment that is replacing existing Exhibit A with new Exhibit A, and that was sponsored by Daniel Iso and second by Mark Freeland with a vote of 19 in favor, 0 opposed. And the legislation was tabled until April 8th. I believe there was more amendments that needed to be done. I can also send a copy of the Exhibit A that was attached to the amendment to the subcommittee members if you wish. And that's the update.
Thank you, Jalissa, for the update. Yes, if you could please send that to our committee here with Sexual Assault Prevention Subcommittee members, and we will take a look at that again. Okay, and again at this time, there is a question by Madam Chair on some of the recommendations from this committee. And again, Madam Chair, did you send out the information that I'm looking for it right now? Contact information.
Pro Tem Chair, I sent it out last month. It was the logic model. So it's the areas that the committee has been working on.
Okay.
And what we could do is we could just use those high level areas to make sure they're incorporated into, let me pull that up right now just to refresh everyone's mind.
Okay, I'm looking for it as well. Let me see.
It should say updated logic model. And so while you're waiting for that, Chair, I'll just remind the committee. So it's a column. So the first item is the Amber Alert system here on Navajo Nation, the sexual assault response training, prosecutions in sexual assault cases, victim advocates, sexual assault prevention initiatives in the schools and public education awareness, a tri-state coalition, data sharing agreements, human trafficking, LGBTQI issues, sexual harassment, what says within Navajo Nation departments, revenge porn, and the Navajo Nation sexual violence, intimate partner violence, and family violence prevention and elimination of violence and suicide act. We do have a sexual assault or sexual violence prevention working group, the Child Advocacy Center, the Peacemaking Healing Project, the Data Institute, the well-being of our children learning from home. So those would be the items that I will just add in the appropriate priorities. I'll need the assistance of the office of the speaker to make sure that we make the proper amendments.
I thank you for that update. I believe I just sent it to the full 24th Navajo Nation Council. This is the one that's updated February 14th, 2021, correct? The logic model for proposed initiative needs action and then funding. There's two different highlight, the orange and then in the green as well.
Okay, Pro Tem, let me just check to make sure.
Mm-hmm. That has issues, output, resources, activities,
yeah.
Short term. So that would be what we would add today to legislation 0024-21.
Yes, Chair, and it would just be the first column because it's a high-level listing, so it'd be the first column.
So the first column is issues. And victim advocate, sexual assault prevention, tri-state. Oh, okay. So it'll be the first column. Okay. I understand what's going on. Okay. Yeah, Nana Kwegi, Sexual Assault Prevention Subcommittee members. Thank you, Madam Chair, for speaking on this. So is there a motion from the committee to add this to legislation 0024-21, which is this logic model that we sent out to actually the whole 24th Navajo Nation Council? Where's my agenda?
I'll motion, Tosh.
Okay, thank you, Delegate Stewart. There's a motion to add this document to legislation 0024-21. Is there a second, committee members?
Second, Delegate Paul Begay.
There is a second by Delegate Paul Begay to add this. And are there any other questions or comments to adding this logic model at this time? Is there anything else that you would like to add, Delegate Crowdy? I'm sorry. Shananta, go ahead.
The legislation on us priority this year. I think it's about time that we put the Congress and all of it. And I would like to, somehow be recognized by everybody by having a protest at the state level and the Congress level. Maybe in a certain day we can go out and do and ask other tribes. It would be really good to really have our voice heard. Otherwise, I think it's time because that's one of the amendments that we can use. Okay, so thank you.
Okay, Shananta, Delegate Eugene. So, again, committee members, there is some other recommendations to really have our voice as Navajo Nation, our voice to be elevated for some of the other possible ways are protests. I know that many organizations out there, I know recently, there have been big protests, and I think the it's kind of earlier, I don't know, maybe I shouldn't say this, but the first presentation we received and heard, from SORNA, I was thinking so many of our Navajo people have died and they have been taken way too early. But it seems like when a non-Navajo person, a non-Indigenous person, when they are violated, when they're hurt, then all of a sudden laws in Washington and at the state level, they create laws. Why is it that when our people are harmed and murdered and killed, then, so I think this is where we need to elevate our voices, not just as Indigenous people, but we have so many allies. So, so to committee members, there is also another recommendation. But back to adding, I don't know if Chairwoman, your thoughts on, I don't know if delegates still wanted to add that to this logic model. How would that work? I need some help on this. Yeah.
Thank you, Pro Tem. So we could add the items, and I think with the discussion with delegates, so organizations do reach out to the council and to leadership in bringing awareness and accountability on the type of violence that is going on in our communities. Especially yesterday, we had a call on what type of resources are needed. So the Navajo Nation has, the federal government has not provided the Navajo Nation with the adequate amount of funding needed to provide law enforcement. We have, this is our historic low for how many officers we have out on the field. And it's the best estimate is we need at least 500 officers. And right now we have under 200. And we're at the point of, and we'll need to have to sue the federal government to provide that type of resources just to meet our basic need here on the ground when it comes to law enforcement and public safety. There is an upcoming next month, a sexual assault awareness. I know with COVID, it limits our in-person, but we continue to have conversations on bringing awareness and trying to organize. And so we are looking to tell our story, and especially the injustice. A few weeks ago, we had community members who walked for a Navajo woman who's been missing for about 15 years and finally is getting some type of justice. And so I think we could continue to have that dialogue on how we bring awareness, how do we organize, and then how do we join in different efforts to call to action. And so however we could have that conversation, I'll be right there with you, delegates. So we have marched in DC before, we've marched to Window Rock, we've marched to the state capitol. And so if we could stay loud, I'm right there with you, delegates. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I know that there's some of our relatives from Navajo who have been really active doing walks, marches across the Navajo Nation and everywhere. Even our youth have been running. So I think we can, and I know there was, Delegate Crotty, a march, specifically a campaign to end missing murdered Indigenous women before there were runners that came to Window Rock. I know some of them, wearing their moccasins, etc. So I think also, if need be, we can reach out to these organizations and tell them that Navajo Nation, 24th Navajo Nation Council Sexual Assault Prevention Subcommittee does support their effort. And if there's anything that we can collaborate with them on behalf for our people and to bring awareness. I believe that this committee, along with Law and Order and the rest of the 24th Navajo Nation Council, we can continue to send a strong message. It is only that when we do repetition, I think that's when we get our voices heard. Otherwise, these individuals are Navajo people who have vanished or taken in vain. Obviously, they can't speak, so it's our job in this committee to help bring a voice, bring a face to the rest of the world of our relatives who have been taken. So, thank you, Delegate Eugene. So, and also, council is coming up next month, and since next month is Sexual Assault Awareness Month, maybe we can join. I know there's usually marches. I don't know if that's going to happen, so we'll keep an eye out for that also. Back to also the logic model. There was a motion and a second. Did we vote on this yet?
No, we're still in discussion.
Okay, we're still in discussion. Okay, sorry about my tangent, but Sexual Assault Prevention Subcommittee members, are there any other comments, recommendations? Yeah. Okay. With that, there are no other comments at this time. So, staff, if you can help me for roll call vote. Yeah.
Okay. Honorable Madam Chair Amber Kness-Bakrati.
Oh, Delegate Amber Kness-Bakrati votes green. Thank you.
Madam Chair Crotty votes green. Honorable Vince James.
Delegate James votes green.
Honorable James votes green. Honorable Wilson C. Stewart Jr.
Green.
Honorable Stewart votes green. Honorable Eugene So.
Oh, thank you.
Honorable Stowe votes green. Honorable Paul Begay.
Delegate Paul Begay votes green.
Honorable Begay votes green. Pro Tem Chair, you have 5 in favor, 0 opposed, 1 not voting, which is including the Chair, Pro Tem Chair, Honorable Nathaniel Brown not voting.
Yeah, thank you for your help, Ando. And I believe that again on legislation, we're on item number 300-24-21. At this time, Delegate Crotty, are there any other recommendations or addition to this legislation from this committee?
Pro Tem? I'm sorry, did you ask me if there was any other amendment?
Yeah.
No. Just, I just want to clarification that in the logic model, there'll also be the inclusion of the missing and murdered and their relatives. That was, that's included in the logic model. Thank you.
Okay. Also, I did receive an email from Jalissa at 12:34. So our committee members did receive these amendments that were posed by our colleagues yesterday. So replacing existing Exhibit A with a new Exhibit A. So, okay, that was added, and then let's see what the other one is. And I believe okay, there's a longer amendment which has one Navajo sovereignty, and it goes all the way to 21 abandoned uranium mines. So that is an update to this SAP committee members. Excuse me. So with that, committee members, are there any other questions on this item number 3 at this point? Legislation 0024-21. With that, I believe with no other comments or questions, we'll go ahead and vote on this report on legislation and adding the amendments to this from the SAP committee. With that, staff, if you can help me for a roll call vote, please.
Okay, Honorable Pro Tem, I don't believe you have a motion and second for main motion.
Okay, thank you. Committee members, is there a motion on item number 3, please?
Mr. Brown, Pro Tem?
Yes,
I have Wilson Stewart and Paul Begay on this logic model proposed initiative.
Was that for the?
Is that what you have, Cheryl? That's on.
I have that.
Legislation 0024-21, logic model proposed initiative. Wilson Stewart and Paul Begay.
Yeah, I have that to add the logic model to legislation.
But you don't have that on the main motion, right?
No.
No.
Is that included with the main motion?
No, but there, I don't think there's no main motion on this report.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, there's.
Okay, with that, we'll go ahead and we do have a motion and a second by the amendment, and that was to add the logic model. And then now we're going back to the main motion on item number 3 after we added the amendment. So we're back to the main motion to accept this report on this legislation 24-21. So we do need a motion on this, committee members.
Eugene, so.
Okay, action Delegate Eugene, so motion. Is there a second?
Delegate Crotty, second.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. There's a motion and a second on this. Staff, if you can help me with a roll call vote.
Okay, Honorable Madam Chair Amber Knaz-Bakrati,
Delegate Amber Knaz-Bakrati votes green. Thank you.
Honorable Madam Crowdy votes green. Honorable Vinton Strain,
Delegate James votes green.
Honorable James votes green. Honorable Wilson C. Stewart Jr.,
Green.
Honorable Stewart votes green. Honorable Eugene So,
Green, oh, thank you.
Honorable So votes green. Honorable Paul Begay, Honorable Paul Begay. Pro Temp Chair, you have 4 in favor, 0 opposed, 2 not voting, which is including the Pro Temp Chair, Honorable Nathaniel Brown not voting, and Honorable Paul Begay not voting.
Okay, thank you, staff. Thank you for your help in the roll call vote. Ado Kujishi Nasa Nahda Daljish. I know that we amended, we added. So right now, we are at item number 4, which is we added reports. Item number 4 would be Anna Boynton with State Tribal Liaison, Utah Department of Public Safety. Ms. Boynton, are you still online with us? Okay, committee members, it looks like we do not have Ms. Boynton online with us currently. So we will move on to item number 5, Federal Grants, the Office for Victims of Crimes, 2021 Tribal Victim Services Set Aside, and 2021 NCAI Fund Victim Services Microgrant Program. Is there anyone online to report on this?
Pro Tem, that's I'll report. This is Delegate Cruddy.
Oh, okay. The floor is yours, Madam Chair Cruddy.
Thank you. Thank you, colleagues. I think what we can do in future agendas, we can add this as a section just for written reports, and I could provide the documents as updates. I realize that it takes a lot of time and energy for these meetings, and I appreciate it. So today, I wanted to let the committee know that there is, in our efforts in 2016, Delegate Brown and myself testified for a few years at the Office of Victims of Crime Tribal Consultation, advocating for a special tribal set-aside. So that has come into fruition. All of the Native nations are able to apply. So Navajo Nation, we did submit our documents on our population, and there's going to be legislation that will be going before the appropriate oversight committees. And this will be the Navajo Nation as the governing body of the Navajo Nation recognizes Utah Navajo Health Systems as the Navajo Nation authorized designee for the purpose of applying for the Office of Victims of Crime Fiscal Year 2021 Tribal Victim Service Set-Aside Program. A tribal resolution is in the approval process and will be sent forthwith. So the Navajo Nation Council recognizes the need to expand victim services by providing advocates who can attend court proceedings with a victim or on their behalf. Advocates will inform clients about the court process, act as a form of support, process the outcome of hearing afterwards, and develop a safety plan. They'll need to develop the Navajo Nation needs to develop a 24/7 crisis response team consisting of trained crisis responders, whether employees or volunteers, who can respond on scene and provide immediate crisis intervention. The Navajo Nation Council also recognized the need to expand case management as victim witness services advocates provide basic case management services in holistic, person-centric approach, and the need to enhance crisis counseling and provide crisis counselors to help victims process their recent victimization events and to help the client on an ongoing longer-term counselor. The Navajo Nation recognizes the need to develop a child advocacy center which embraces a child-focused, multidisciplinary approach to investigation, prosecution, and treatment of child sexual abuse cases, advocacy, transportation for victims, hospital accompaniment, support groups, child programs, and community outreach and education, and the need to collect and analyze crime data to develop data-driven victim services. So the designee, Utah Navajo Health Incorporated, who administration and corporation headquarters are located on Montezuma Creek, Utah, operates and provides victim services in southeastern Utah. UNSHS also to contract with the Victim Witness Services Coconino County to provide victim services in Arizona, and with Sexual Assault Services of Northwest New Mexico to provide victim services in New Mexico. UNHS is also authorized to contract with Gwinnett College Public Health and Northern Arizona University, Department of Health Science, and Department of Criminology and Criminal Justice to develop a community assessment and data institute. UNHS is further authorized to contract with statewide tribal domestic violence and sexual assault coalitions serving tribal coalitions. Coalition to Stop Violence Against Native Women will also be included in an upcoming National Congress of American Indians micro grant, which will help Navajo Nation focus in on strategic planning on what services are needed across our Navajo Nation. So thank you, Pro Tem. I just wanted to bring this to the attention of the committee, and we have coordinated calls, and as we're going then to have listening sessions and to make sure that the unique challenges and needs are being provided. In Delegate Paul Begay's area, there was a community assessment, and so that may be how we collect information, especially when it comes to providing like traditional counseling, assisting families with offsetting some of the ceremonial costs, if there's damage to the property, or if they need additional support to get to emergency shelters, and most importantly, connecting them to mental health, behavioral health for their long-term recovery. So thank you, Pro Tem, and please let me know if there's any questions or recommendations. We're waiting for this to be legislated. We're hoping by next week, and so we'll move forward on these grants. Thank you very much.
That's another thing. Okay. To me, it was just turned off. See, yes, kidding. Committee members. So that's that's kid. Any questions at this time? Okay. Looking through here. If there are no questions, we can go ahead, and staff, if you can help me with a roll call vote. Thank you.
Honorable Pro Tem, I don't believe we have a motion and second.
That's true. Thank you. Committee members, I need a motion and a second on this report, please. Federal grants.
I'll motion, Sash.
Okay, Delegate Stewart. A second, on Mr. Delegate Obligay, second. And a roll call for a vote, please.
Okay, Madam Chair, Honorable Amber Knaus-Bakrati.
Delegate Amber Knaus-Bakrati votes green. Thank you.
Honorable Crotty votes green. Honorable Vince James.
Delegate James votes green.
Honorable James votes green. Honorable Wilson C. Stewart Jr.
Green.
Honorable Stewart votes green. Honorable Eugene So. Honorable Paul Begay.
Paul Begay votes green.
Honorable Begay votes green. Honorable Eugene So. Pro Temp Chair, you have 4 in favor, 0 opposed, 2 not voting, which is including the Pro Temp Chair, Honorable Nathaniel Brown not voting, and Honorable Eugene So not voting.
Okay, thank you. Next item on the agenda is item number 6, which is the dedicated support for tribes and Native communities in the American Rescue Plan Act. Madam Chair, is this for the whole committee discussion on this American Rescue Plan?
Thank you, Pro Tem. What I wanted to do was just point out areas of the rescue plan that support the work that we do. And I remember that this plan contains the American Rescue Plan is the single largest infusion of resources in Indian country and Native communities in United States history. So collectively, it contains over $32+ million targeted for tribal governments and Native communities. I think what's important for this is that there is funding like for health, education, and labor. So there's funding for child care block grant at just over $1 billion, which we know some of our victims of violence have been asking for additional support with child care. And specifically, programs for survivors is at $19 million. And so this authorized funding to support the Strong Hearts Native Helpline and the Tribal Family Violence Prevention Services Act. And so we'll have to follow up with our Navajo Nation OMB and see, and you just received a report from our social services that they received funding through this. And so we'll have to have a follow-up and know how social services plans to provide additional resources. There is $2.5 million for child abuse and prevention treatment. There is funding for the older Americans and their families, $25 million when it comes to supporting violence and other areas with our older Americans and our elderly. And there is additional services that for our IHS, which will help our data collection and modernizing their system. There also will be housing assistance through our NHA, which can include expanding their emergency services. And hopefully we could get to the point to talk to them about transitioning either their homes for emergency shelters or other areas that are needed when there is a victim of a crime. And so I just wanted to provide that to the committee so that we could have that on our radar. What it's not clear maybe for Law and Order Committee is how can we continue to support public safety. And I'm not exactly sure, and it's not clear from this high-level summary on what we can provide to our public safety. Thank you, Pro Tem.
Thank you, yeah, Madam Chair Crotty, for this update on this funding that is coming forward. At this time, committee members, is there any questions or comments on this, on the American Rescue Plan, specifically targeting the area that we are working with and the oversight? Donado, kiddo. Actually, I have one question. I was wondering, I know yesterday we were in Nabiquea. I was actually en route to Window Rock and then back to submit documentation. So I was in and out of service. But to the, I know yesterday was the tribal consultation. I'm wondering if any of the delegates here were able to get on that call also, I believe there was a tribal consultation on the American Rescue Plan. Was there anyone from our committee who was on that tribal consultation meeting yesterday? Let me see. Okay. I know we were really busy yesterday, so I don't at this time, can I get a motion for this last report on our agenda?
I'll motion Delegate Crotty. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Delegate Crotty, for the motion. Is there a second, committee members?
I'll second Stewart.
Okay, if you had Delegate Stewart. Okay, with no questions currently, although staff, if you can help me with the roll call vote, please. Thank you.
Delegate Amber Canis-Crotty votes green. Thank you.
Madam Chair, Crotty votes green. Honorable Vince James. Honorable Wilson C. Stewart Jr.
Green. Delegate James, green.
Honorable Vince James votes green. Honorable Wilson C. Stewart Jr. votes green. Honorable Eugene So.
Oh, thank you.
Honorable Eugene So votes green. Honorable Paul Begay.
Paul Begay votes green.
Honorable Paul Begay votes green. Pro Temp Chair, you have 5 in favor, 0 opposed, 1 not voting, which is the Pro Temp Chair, Honorable Nathaniel Brown, not voting.
Okay, thank you, committee members, on that. Right now, that concludes the report section. Although we are on number 6, old business, which is none. 7, new business, none. Close the meeting, announcement, and adjournment. Although the next meeting date is April 16th, 2021. Although are there any announcements at this time? April 16th, Friday. Although Shananta, if there are no announcements at this time, is there a motion for adjournment?
Motion Delegate Crotty.
Okay, we do have a motion by Delegate Crotty, and I thought I heard, and then a second.
That'll be me.
Okay, second by Delegate Stewart. Okay, staff, if you can help me with the roll call vote, thank you.
Honorable Madam Chair Amber Canis-Crotty.
Delegate Amber Canis-Crotty votes green. Thank you.
Honorable Madam Chair Crotty votes green. Honorable Vince James.
Delegate James votes green.
Honorable James votes green. Honorable Wilson C. Stewart Jr.
Green.
Honorable Stewart votes green. Honorable Eugene So.
Oh, thank you.
Honorable So votes green. Honorable Paul Begay.
Green.
Honorable Begay votes green. Pro Temp Chair, you have 5 in favor, 0 opposed, 1 not voting, which is the Pro Temp Chair, Honorable Nathaniel Brown, not voting.
Okay, yeah, thank you so much, committee members. Thank you, staff, for all your help. And that concludes our meeting, Sexual Assault Prevention Subcommittee. Have a good day.
Mr. Vice Chair Brown,
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
this is Carlisle Begay.
Mr. Begay, how are you doing, sir?
I'm good, thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I just want to clarify, sorry, I was on mute earlier regarding your question on the Department of Treasury travel consultation yesterday.
Yes.
Just to clarify, and I'll be sending out notes over the weekend on that call, the Treasury Department did host a travel consultation and listening session yesterday morning. Most of the discussion was focused on the allocation of amounts reserved from the previous CARES Act, the guidance that was contained in the Coronavirus Relief Fund, some of the final guidance for tribes who were reconciling the audits as a result of the use of CARES Act funding, the extension, etc. So there wasn't anything in the discussion yesterday focused on the American Rescue Plan. But alternatively, the Department of Treasury did announce this week that they are hosting a series of travel consultation and consultations in the coming Chair Crotty had indicated. So there will be consultations. They have asked for input regarding the department's formula for each of the tribal share of the funds and the allowable expenditure of those funds. The slated consultation for Navajo specifically is for Wednesday, March 31st at 2 p.m. Eastern. There's a link to register, but I will send it out to the subcommittee here for your awareness, but I'll send that email here shortly with the Dear Travel letter that was sent out by the Treasury Department this week.
Thank you, Mr. Begay, for that really important update on the funding. Yesterday, so I did receive some of the information that you've sent us before. Currently, were there any guidelines shared at that meeting yesterday? The unallowable or the disallowable part?
There was, Mr. Vice Chair, there were just some clarifications on the guidances that the Treasury Department has released regarding the CARES Act funding. There wasn't any additional detailed guidance on allowable and unallowable expenditures. There were just clarifications on previous guidances given by the Treasury Department. But I will send that in the notes that the Treasury Department went through yesterday once I reconcile my notes here this weekend, and we'll send that out via email.
Okay, thank you. I'm looking at the Department of Treasury, which is dated March 18th, yesterday. So this is a fact sheet on the American Rescue Plan. So I think that's really the latest documentation that we have. And one other thing, I know that this meeting's over, so we can have offline discussion right now. And whoever's listening, really important information. You said there was, were there any decisions on the CARES Act funding? And then is there like again, different deadlines, or is that still the same? What are some of the updates on that?
Thank you, Mr. Vice. The only guidance that was given at the call yesterday was regarding the extension of the CARES Act deadline. As you're aware, that was extended from the end of December of 2020 through this year. I think most of the questions from what I heard were questions related to the guidance that was given already by the Treasury Department. The the questions as it relates to Navajo, I didn't really capture anything other than the guidance that the Controller Kirk has given to the council. But I'll reconcile all my notes over the weekend, and we'll send that email to all the delegates.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. I appreciate your update to this committee. But we did adjourn, and I'll be looking forward. And whatever you share, I always share that with my chapters. There's a lot of questions already from our Navajo people, from our chapters, and I know that there's agency meetings that are coming up this weekend as well. So people are, we need to calm them down and say, okay, we do have a little bit of time. So there's a sense of urgency. I think it's really because the first the CARES Act, there was a deadline on that. So we will wait, and we'll continue to work with everyone who's waiting for the latest information on the American Rescue Plan. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Carlisle Begay, for that update. And I think this, again, we concluded our meeting. Yeah, everyone, enjoy the rest of your day. Have a good weekend, staff. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Pro Tem. And Budget and Finance will be having our leadership meeting on Tuesday at 10 o'clock. So that'll be another great time to continue to talk about the recovery plan. Thank you.
All right, thank you for going.
We're going to thank you. To the members and I'll apologize about the technical issues, and we'll work through it for the next meeting. Thank you.